Hey.
Right. So, our propose for today is I11 implemented the changes from yesterday. I'd like to get your.
Yeah, now, did you intend to clobber my changes, or was that just an accident?
What? Did I club what changes? Sorry.
If you look at the commit,
Uh
I'll
huh.
post you a link in the general channel.
Yeah. Oh my god, have I just done. I've
It's
been
fine, I
outrageously
can
rude.
fix it, but I'd made some edits, and then I think what's happened is you've like pasted straight over the top or something.
Oh man, I'm sorry about that.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. Shit happens now. Um,
Yeah.
because what happens is there is a formatter that I built. I've made a script for it that runs in the root.
Mm-hmm.
My formatter runs automatically. Yours doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
and so it can result in what looks like a lot of changes for me. That's actually just the auto formatter
Mm-hmm.
kicking in. We do need to reconcile these differences specifically on actors and actions,
Uh-huh.
because I went through the actors and actions list and I wrote them out in a way that I think works for me to build it.
Oh, I
Um,
see what you've done. So my commit last night, you've expanded on,
yeah,
and then I've just shot all over it this morning.
yeah. I mean, if it's accidental, that's fine. I was like, oh, did he do that on purpose? Like, screw you.
Okay,
Um,
so I'm looking at your format for. We can roll back. Uh,
well, no, because now we're gonna lose your stuff. So why
all
don't
right.
I just?
Actually, no. Give me 2 secs. What I'll do, because this is my fuck up. I'm going to take a local copy of what I've just committed and then undo.
Nah,
No, I'm going to.
nah, don't worry. I only really edited one single section, so I will modify. I will put that single section in below what you've done so that we can see them for comparison,
All right.
and
Okay.
then we can pick one, and then that's a very easy fix to an otherwise not easy problem.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right, I'm going to run the formatter again as well, just because it's hard for me not to run it.
So in future, is this the syntax that's required
Not
on your
required
commit?
is what I'm suggesting.
Uh-huh.
If you think of something different, like I can't
It looks all.
really
It's like
insist on one way or another,
yeah, but
really.
you're on the receiving end, so you should always be nice to the guy on the
Yeah,
receiving end.
it's not. Yeah, and I wanted to talk about why that format is the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just I will put my stuff in over this directly above where you've got yours.
Mm-hmm.
And I will commit it. Just give me 1 second.
No worries.
No, I gotta. Yeah, the this might come out looking funny because I've actually found a bug in the auto formatter, which is weird. It's because of something you did naturally. Also, %20 doesn't belong in the or doesn't need to be in the links.
Yeah, I had a real problem with this because it renders wrongly inside of Git, but renders correctly on the website. If you remove that, if you just have a space.
Oh, if you remove the %20.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, why don't we fix that by saying that all files can't have a space anyway?
I think that's
Spaces
probably
are
friendlier,
actually evil.
isn't it? That's probably friendlier.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. I'm just pushing up the changes in Git. Something should pop up soon.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's up. Hopefully, hopefully it builds. All right, I have there's a link I want to share with you, which I'd like to use to explain why this format is the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
I posted the link in general. Can you let me know when you got that page up?
I've got that page up.
Okay, so the is where I've got, by way of example, the format of the state within the covenant is. And there's a bunch of JavaScript.
Yep, see.
Okay, see the key in the JavaScript object that says API?
I do.
So what all I'm doing with these actions is these actions will appear directly in that API.
Oh, right. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And what I'm trying to, this is the API that all the programs use to talk to each other, and part of the covenant format that we've settled on, if you're friendly, you describe your API. If you're not friendly, your API is just there and people have to figure it out somehow.
And you're
Yeah, if you're doing it right, you publish your API, and that API is one for one the actions that I would want to reach agreement with you on during an idea. Like, say, if you were the writer of the idea and I was the implementer, I would expect that, like, my job is to turn your actions and actors into covenants with an API.
Right. So let me test if I've got this right. So where test is, I'm now looking at API just inside of the code block. I would change that, for example, create output or update pool, say.
Yep.
And the properties for update pool would be pool.md.
Yeah.
But it's at this level, it's not needing, an additional level saying with the delta for the update. It's just the object that is being acted upon.
At I11, all it really needs is some kind of pseudocode telling me what kind of information is expected to come with that action.
Right. That works. So, that really works.
And if I can reach agreement with you on what those actions are, then our communication can be much more direct, because I'm like, well, if I need to add a new action, I can talk about that with you directly, and I have to reason why.
Yes.
And that's part of what I want to have a talk about tonight, not as QA, but as the implementer of the idea that you are authoring.
Yeah.
And then for what I'd like to get to is, I would imagine that QA for us is interblock blockchains. That's what this QA specializes in. So I don't think it's overreaching to say that an idea needs to specify the actors and actions segment before it goes ahead, because that makes it very clear to developers and ideators alike what is the behavior of this piece of interblock software. Because we can all look at that interface and go, yeah, I get what that's supposed to be. And if it's missing in the outputs, I'm like, where is my blah, blah, blah action?
Yeah. I agree in the broad. It may be the case that the idea is correct, but not necessarily complete. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's fine. But at least we can talk about it in a way that's more
unambiguous.
Yeah, right. Because otherwise, we're going to talk about English sentences.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. It was quite an interesting process going through. Actually, I created a couple extra actors and actions going through that, just because the English narrative was hiding complexity, because it was like, oh yeah, stuff happens. So you'll see that list has actually increased slightly, not by much, but it's increased slightly.
Okay, so I have the changes I made have been published on the website now. Mm-hmm. I've put the stuff I entered shows up, and then the word break occurs, and then the stuff you entered went in there.
All right, give me 2 seconds. All right. Yep. See it.
Right.
Okay.
The formatting, I think you were trying to make the action names be in bold.
No, I was trying to make the actors' names in capitalized italics and the action names in capitalized.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
but your format's nicer. I like your format better.
Okay, and I've used the squiggly braces to represent that the payload of the action is an object, and the variable names or the keys within the object are listed there. So, for example, number 1, I, in curly braces, pull, request. Mm-hmm. Basically, if the QA issues that action, it needs to tell me what pull are they talking about and what request are they talking about.
Yes. No. You're quite right. All of this needs a pull. Yeah. Because sorry, I was in my single pull mode. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But there's also the problem that I've sort of gone at this as though I was writing a program when we're still doing paper-based MD files and Git commits. So it's a bit weird there. I mean, if you're okay with it,
no,
it seems constructive to think about it as a program.
No, I'm very happy with that. Okay. Actually, remember whatever it was, 8 months probably ago, when I was writing the tests in order to define the dictionary definitions or to tighten up the dictionary definitions. It's the same concept.
Same thing, yeah, it's exactly the same thing. And then what will happen is that I'll make you covenants that actually have these exact action types in them, like in that example that I showed you where it was just test, but it would be, each one of these would be your action name, and then a whole heap more detail on what's contained within that payload.
Yeah.
And then when you actually interact with the system, the logs will flash to you when each one of those actions happen, mm-hmm. and you'd be able to run them, across multiple actors, multiple times. You'd be able to see those actions flash
Right.
up.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of those actions give us a common dictionary where we can both attach meaning to. It doesn't have to be the same meaning, so long as we're talking about the same object, we'll probably be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you start talking in English sentences describing what an action did, that's
That gets fuzzy.
yeah, well, it's more open to interpretation.
On 4.2, I'm doing this just for shits and giggles. You've missed out the target pool. Should be pool, pool updates. Presumably.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, no worries.
I'm just doing it for shits and giggles.
I also added the add funds and payout funds because the moderator is actually, I think, in charge of money in, money out.
That did occur to me just but 5 minutes before this call that we don't have an escrow role, but escrow is an automatic role.
No, not escrow. Just the fact that you can actually have an account balance in the pool. That means that you passed KYC.
Yes. By escrow.
Escrow is supposed to be automatic in the system, but adding funds is actually an Oracle-like activity where there's no way to program in. Did you pass AML? That's a human.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah. It's part of the add membership, isn't it? So, say add membership, you're now a member. You want to fund something that's inside the pool that's already passed QA in order to take it to escrowed, and then on completion, the QA is the one that triggers it. But it triggers what, I guess, is what you're saying there. It's like, well, where's the funds coming from?
No. Escrow is still automatic, and we haven't actually covered that in the actors and actions, because just because the action seems simple doesn't mean that there can't be arbitrarily many other actions that get triggered from other actors inside the system. Like you could model the escrow service as an actor, even though it's an automated actor. And then when QA says pass, that actually triggers the escrow to send the action escrow release for all the escrows that were locked up.
Should we be adding an automated actor then under escrow as opposed to moderator?
Yeah, maybe, but it just sort of seemed like we don't want that now because it's paper-based.
Right.
If we add that in, we're basically jumping ahead to our next phase, which is programmatic implementation.
Yeah.
So it feels weird to leave it out, but if we add it in, it sort of like doubles the amount of work, and it's like, we're not going to do anything on paper about it anyway.
There's plenty of other things that are automated in this process that we're not going to explicitly call out in the actors. So,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a starter. It's a starting point, right?
Yeah. Okay. Now, what part of my big dump over your commit was was the integration test, but you wouldn't have had a chance to do that because this was 5 minutes before coming on the call. I did this.
Yeah, I know. That's a sneaky trick to drop a whole bunch.
Yeah,
of stuff on
I'm sorry about that one. It was just a matter of trying to get the girl.
Look, I mean, when I look at it, it looks great. When I read it yesterday, it looked great. Even though it was English, I could understand what you meant.
Yeah.
If you made it correlate to, if we can agree on the actors and actions, and then I think that would change the integration test a little bit.
Yeah,
it still looks good to me.
If you're happy with the kind of the thought and the logic behind it, then I can transcribe.
You're just exercising the flowchart.
Yeah.
Using just the actions that were defined in actors and actions, and it's kind of hard to go wrong there. Like, it's really well specified. It's like, okay, that's they either did it all or it didn't.
Yes, it's almost to the point where you don't need the integration tests. You could just imply them from the
In a way.
the
So
flow.
there is a testing package from XState which allows you to actually, it generates every possible path through a state machine, and then allows you to test.
Oh, that's good. What's the name of that? Sorry.
XState test, I think it is. It's there's a video on it. Probably worth dragging up. Hang on.
You still there?
Yeah. All right, I got it.
Yeah, I'm on xstate, xstate.js.org, under docs packages xstate test.
Yeah, what you really want is the video of it being used, which again I just posted it in the general channel.
Okay, cool. Obviously not watch that now, but I like that idea because defining in state charts is just so easy.
Something in the future it might be good, nice to sort of be aware of it.
Yeah,
You're right.
defining operations in state charts is just such a nice way of doing it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the way Interblock's built, it's basically a direct mapping. So it's even less interpretation between the specifier and the implementer. It's direct.
Yeah.
That's why we sort of try to do it this way. So can I talk about a couple of fundamental differences or themic differences I see between the way we have both been doing actions?
Yes, I think I caught most of that. You broke up. There was packet loss there for the last 15 seconds.
So can I talk a bit about some themic differences between how we have both been thinking about actions?
Yep, absolutely.
So a good example is under worker, the action update NFT image. You had specified create NFT image, and the theme I want to point at is the same as, see, I've only got the action update output. I haven't got create output.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So by saying by arranging the commands in such a way that update is sort of the default, I can save a couple of actions that are otherwise superfluous.
So, again, go ahead.
So first of all, you got to create the request somehow. Once it's made, update NFT. If there is no NFT and you call update, it'll do the same as create. If you've already got an image and you call update, it'll change it to the new one. My point is you can avoid the create action just by choosing how you handle update. Because it's not always true. But
okay, by that same logic, wouldn't create dust request 2.1 on worker be create request? Update request.
Yeah. So that's that does need that is an error that I overlooked. It does need I think in this case, create and update are different because create generates an ID,
Mm-hmm.
and then update just simply modifies that ID. So yeah, good. I mean, good spotting, but that's sort of the concept I wanted to push, as well as the concept that propose contract and revoke contract.
Mm-hmm.
I remove the notion of agreeing, because agreement is just proposing the same thing.
Yes, and it's kind of you could agree in any way, really, couldn't you? So
Well,
it's
you can go propose, and for the funder, when you propose, you need to include some funds in that, because you're not going to propose and then put the funds in later. Like, you need to have the funds now.
right.
And then as the worker, if you propose the exact same thing, that's going to cause a lock. Like, that's the same as acceptance, but we can use the same command.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So yeah, it's the match, and the match implies the agreement.
Right, but it's also calling out that when you propose something, you need to also supply and escrow funds with it.
Yeah.
So as a funder, you can't just propose and be like, how about I pay you $1 million? It's like, you need to have the $1 million, and then you can make that proposal.
How does I agree with that? How does revoke work? Because revoke is
if there's been no lock, revoke cancels your offer.
Okay, so it's removing your proposed contract. So you've got a proposed contract.
Yeah.
Nobody's proposed the same contract, and therefore you're in lock. So it's just hanging.
Yeah.
And so you can revoke it. So you're taking it off the market. This is not you're doing the contract and actually there's a breach, and so it's like, fuck it, I'm taking it away.
No, that's the negotiation process is like proposing and revoking.
Yeah. Do we need revoke? We're getting into the weeds here, but do we need revoke? Wouldn't be revoke the same as proposed contract null? So you're basically, you're taking it off the market, because in the same view of what you're saying about update.
True. Yeah, I get what you mean, but if you propose something, there's still something there. So you sort of need to, like, delete is like a kind of a explicit thing. You can't just
it's
like if you have a null contract, it's still up there as a null contract, whereas delete means there's no contract, which is not the same as a null contract.
Right. Can you ever, in a similar vein, can you delete a request and go, actually, I was drunk and put this request up?
Yeah, well, that's a good. I think you should be able to delete it. I mean, if someone saw it and took a copy, they can fork it.
Right. Yeah.
But you should be able to delete it. Yeah. Be like, that's a dumb idea.
Yeah. So it's.
I think it should always be retrievable. Like if someone wants to walk the history, they could make a scraper that would pull up all the deleted dust. But delete, it's more an honorary thing. Like if everyone running the system is a gentle person, then they would honor your request and they would take down your ludicrous request.
Yeah. There you go. Actually, that was a dumb idea. And it's got my name on it. I quite like my reputation. I'm going to take that back down. We really don't need fizzy milk, for example. Which is something I've always wondered why nobody does.
That's big in Ukraine, fizzy milk. That's big.
You're shitting me. Really?
I shit you not, dude.
For
It is
decades,
huge.
I've been using that as the prototypical, stupid idea.
It's not that bad,
You
but in
haven't seen it.
Ukraine, it is wild.
I had no idea. Oh, damn it.
Yeah.
Ah, that's been my example of a shit idea for so long when, chatting in this
You
sort
can
of
probably
forum.
buy it. You can probably buy it at your local supermarket.
Oh, it's definitely not mine. Oh, you got me wondering now. After this, I'm going to be Googling how to get
It's
UHT
a
fizzy
special.
milk.
It's a special kind of yogurt. It's a special kind of yogurt that's basically like milk, but it's fizzy. It's got effervescence in it. Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to think about a different stupid question.
A
Or a
different
stupid idea.
stupid suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So, what's the actions here are propose and revoke. Yep, happy with that. The contract. Are we adding in a worker revoke request and revoke idea?
Yeah, we should really.
Yep, and we're editing create dust request and create dust idea and changing those to update request and update idea.
No, that needs to be create because that generates an idea, an ID. Whereas like NFT, you don't need to create the NFT. You
Oh,
can just
right.
do update
I see what you're saying. Because
because
an NFT is not an object in itself. It's attached to, it refers to an
it's
object.
attached to a request, right?
Right,
And the
right, right.
request has an ID already, so you can just target that and go update.
All right.
And in that case, update is the same as create. It's no problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. Got that. All right. Anything more on actors and actions?
No, man. I think like okay, there's it's not entirely coherent because of the fact that we're using Markdown, but generally speaking, I think it covers everything enough that I would be comfortable thinking about our activities in paper format as though it was interaction with a program using these actions and actors.
Yep. Cool.
I think that from here, I could make a simple program version that we could. In fact, that might be a where we start the real Dreamcatcher is to make the programmatic version of this thing first, because it would be very simple.
I think that'd be a good thing to do, yeah.
It's probably the wisest place to start rather than fucking sailing off into the complex wilderness of all the things that we want it to be. We're just like, well, we have somehow or other agreed that this version is workable.
Yeah.
And it's pretty close to minimum because it all runs on paper.
Yeah.
And I think that it's prudent to turn this directly into program mode and then iterate on it from there.
Yeah.
Because we should really only add the bits we need. And clearly this is all we need, this bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of hooks to hang a lot of the other stuff we've got in the backlog on the dictionary around this.
Yeah, but it's also like it iterating on this core solves the problem of what to do first.
Yes.
Why is the project object needed now? Why can't I do it later?
Yeah.
It answers that kind of question. It also contains within it the means by which to deploy its own self-improvement, which to me is the most important feature that we could focus on, because it's like, sort of doesn't matter how crusty a system it is. If it can self-improve, it's going to win sooner or later.
Yeah, exactly. Good. Okay. I agree with all that. I think we could actually go quite far just with this bare bones.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So does that statement need to be placed somewhere within the NFAs? Like, is it part of this request, or is it a new request, or is it a new idea, or a
It's
derived idea, or what?
I would put that down in the strategic intent in R10.
That means that this idea, I11, cannot fulfill that request.
In what way?
You mean like if you put it in the strategic intent as once completed, I11 is intended to form the basis of a digital version?
Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you there, and it would not block completion of R10.
Yeah, exactly. Because the strategic intent is the head mark. It's the tactical intent you're trying to meet, but the strategic intent gives you
okay.
why.
That's a really neat constraint to put on the system. It's like, has to work in paper, so you can't be fancy at all.
Yeah.
And then once you've got it working in paper, turn that version into software and iterate from there.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay. I'm happy with all that. And these updates, I'll try and I'll try and coordinate, and so I don't shit over anything you're doing. Be nice to have a lock, so I didn't do that, but
well, there is.
I could have done that, but I'm just committing to main.
If you work using Git, but when you use the web interface, there is no lock.
Yeah. I've actually shot myself in the foot a couple of times by doing that as well. To some extent, actually. Well, there's a bunch of other issues, but the other issues are actually extending beyond what this minimum is. So I don't know if there's any issues you want to go through, but I'm very keen actually just to get this over the line and start using this because
Okay.
in
that case, then would it be all right to use the rest of our time tonight to go over that diagram more?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good idea. All right.
So I think I've got some interesting additions to make. Let me just fucking try and get my shit together. So if we convert funders to innovation.
Mm-hmm. Innovation. Okay. What's your thinking there?
Well, innovation, you can be like, internal R&D team versus an accelerator versus crowdfunding versus ambient attribution or the algorithmic cap table.
I don't like that. And the reason I don't like that is if we got innovation under the funders, we're removing.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Cool. If you want to keep something that relates to money, like investors or funders or
investors are better, or capital is a bit cold, but
capital is vague too. Yeah. Probably investment. Investment's a good one.
Yep.
And I would say that if you had investment, in a private company, it would look like an R&D team.
Yep.
Maybe.
So we're now talking about the bottom row, bottom left-hand corner, which currently is capital raises. That is internal R&D. So
yeah, I think right, like because it can't really be capital raises. I think showing how investment works.
Oh, it's isn't it? I don't know what the word is, but basically what you and I are doing, it's investing time. So funders can easily be put as a couple guys spending, 5 years of their life without getting a penny paid for them, trying to build a thing.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah. The 2 minute noodle crew.
Yeah, because that is funding. It's not workers.
Yep.
We don't have a team. It's self funded, I guess.
Okay. All right. I didn't want to get caught up on that row. Um, there's a barrier that I wanted to talk about
Uh huh.
where that even though you may run your operation as serverless,
Hmm.
there is still a barrier in that your business model makes the assumption that you're owning the code, you're owning the serverless functions. There are many of them serving a large number of customers who are all paying you. You own the code, you own the infrastructure, and you own the data that your customers generate, and you charge them for all that and keep on charging. And there's an ownership barrier whereby that model can only go so far because control structures like that have an overhead associated with them. They themselves cost energy to operate. And it's like saying that there's a minimum size at which a governance structure cannot extract enough revenue to feed itself, for it to be worth someone's time to keep up a control structure over other people. Your project has to generate more money than that upkeep.
Yep. Yeah. I follow that.
Yeah. Now the thing I want to really get at is that if you had a bunch of little 5-bar scores along the bottom, one of those scores would be, I think a good metric is median equity stake amongst all the participants.
Yeah.
Now, moving on the left-hand side, it's reasonably high. Maybe it'd be like 2 out of 5 bars. In the virtualization column, it'd be like maybe 1 out of 5. In the cloud version, it would be 0 out of 5. And then in the Dreamcatcher, it would be 5 out of 5.
By equity stake, you talking
Median
about
equity stake of participant.
right? It's how evenly the dispersal of the funds is.
How close to the edge is the equity distribution of your enterprise?
There's something here, isn't there? Yeah, close to the edge.
Now, I'll add on some more bits there that if I was to take median equity distribution, I could use that as a proxy for saying community score, or what is the total sum? What is the median emotional attachment of each participant to this project? Now, if the median equity distribution is high, I think you can say that the emotional attachment will be high too.
If you define equity beyond simple cash return, then you've got an absolute lock there, because you assume that people are rational actors. And if
Yeah.
they're part of a community, they're getting something out of it. May not be cash, but they're getting something of value, because otherwise they must be an idiot to actually do anything with it. So
I was actually meaning cash. I was meaning rights to a royalty stream, rights to vote in how the system operates.
right, but I was also adding into that. It doesn't disrupt your idea there, but I was adding into that. Say if someone really wanted an app to be created, may never get a dime for it. Doesn't want a dime. Maybe anything that is going to be dispersed to them, they're going to immediately attribute to the Red Cross or whatever. But the reason that they're turning up is they are feeling that they're being is equitable as opposed to equity. Their effort is being attributed to in an equitable manner, so that it's like, well, I'm going to turn up. Yes, I'm going to feel good about myself. And if any money turns up, I'm not really interested in that, but I'm going to turn up. I'm going to turn up because I'm a rational actor and want to do something that I want to happen.
Okay. But people that turn up for not money turn away when money comes in and they don't get any.
Well, this is it. This is why I'm saying equitable as opposed to equity.
Yeah. Okay. So there's one more score that I think I need to add here that would sort of maybe make that distinction clearer.
Mm-hmm.
For each column, we could do a score of how much control do your users have over their data.
Mm-hmm.
And for all of those columns, it's basically fucking zero.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Then for us, it's like 5. And
yeah.
Right? For equity, how much equity do your customers own? It's kind of like 0, 0, 0, 0, all of it.
Yeah.
How much, if you can make the computation fungible, then why can't you make the user data fungible too and controlled and run by the user? And what I'm trying to get at is that if you could take that equity score and the user data control score, you can use those scores, I think, to measure happiness or emotional attachment, because humans need control.
Mm-hmm.
They need equitable treatment to feel like they belong somewhere.
Yeah.
Another measurement could be user connection to other users. Now, for Facebook, you'd sort of say that's really high, but your equity score is low. So even though all your users are talking to each other, and in a lot of businesses, people actively don't want that. There's only some businesses that actually want that.
Yeah.
I should point that out. And then if all of you sum together own like 0% stake in Facebook, like, is that really your home? Is that your home? Do you feel comfortable there? Do you belong? Are these your people? Or are you just a refugee looking for a home? Camped out in this place.
There's definitely that's an interesting word to use, home there. So
home.
As an analogy, the home is a place where you basically you're all in it together. More or less,
all fucking homeless.
Exactly. You're more or less, you've got equal stake in that home continuing to exist and be improved and so on, because you're actually living there.
And you can make it better for your other fellow refugees.
Right. Now
you can be like, I'm going to actually put in a couple of grand or a couple of months, and I'm going to make our collective home better.
Right.
And because we all agree to equitably attribute to each other, I'm very comfortable putting in. to improve our home.
Real interesting analogy. I mean, even if we take it down to something really basic, Jude will do the vacuum clean the carpets. We all benefit from not living in a shit tip. She's putting in that work, and in response, I don't know, tidy up the kitchen or whatever. But the idea that you're in one home or you're in one ship, a ship is another good analogy.
Yep.
That's
That's
the
togetherness.
peak. Yeah,
That's togetherness.
That's the peak of community, really, when you're all in it together, and any good that's done benefits all. And you get.
I think home is a better word for us than community, because community is thrown around as a marketing term that people think they've built.
Yeah, that's right.
When it's like, how do you measure home? Like, is it your home if you're renting it?
Yeah.
Not really. Is it your home if you can suddenly be kicked out of it?
No, I agree. Not the use of community, because community is used as a proxy for you can talk to other people who have got interests, but there's no idea of shared common purpose.
Yeah. Is it your home if you can't say whatever you want in it?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the target, and then if you on that
home,
if on that filter, if you start to look at what we've got,
the home score.
Yeah, in kind of company organizations, they love the idea of we're a team. It's like no.
They try to make it.
It's
but I don't think it's good enough to score it. If you did not just company score, but participant score, which includes all your customers as well as your staff, would they all say this is home?
Yes, that's a real interesting way of putting it. That's really nice.
And what I'm trying to illustrate here is that as I follow these columns from left to right, a lot of things follow a trend, and then they suddenly hit us and they flip. Like equity goes from 0 to 5.
Yeah.
Home should go from 0 or 1. Like crowdfunding starts to feel like home, still isn't.
Yeah.
But it should go basically to 5, right?
Yeah.
So there's an inversion point where the removal of control does something for you, and that's the something I'm trying to capture in a diagram.
Yeah.
Like all that we've done in this diagram is sort of pointed to the current trends for business models, particularly for tech and software products. And we can say that there is a limit. You can't sort of do serverless and maintain your control structure over your customers' data and code. There's only so far you can go with that. If you want to go even smaller and have fungible functions, then like, why do they need you to run them if the functions are fungible doing the user's service? And the answer is it isn't. And that's the flip point where you've lost control. The most control you can ever have is dedicated tin.
Yeah.
Bar none. That's it. And all these other things trade you cost and convenience and power, but you're giving up some control. Virtualization, sort of not so much under your control anymore. There's like some extra players in the market. Cloud, definitely, like now the cloud provider is like your partner.
Yes.
Right? Serverless, same deal, right? I'm saying that if you follow all these things through to conclusion, you hit a barrier, like a sound barrier, that you can't penetrate and still be in control. You have to pierce it with fungible functions, which give away the control of your application.
Yes, but what you're getting is an alignment of incentive vectors.
Yeah, right. Like you're getting this home thing, and there's so many companies that are trying to be a home, and they're getting all sorts of speed wobbles. Like, look at Facebook. Facebook nearly fucking imploded. They've always tried to be connection, home, where your friends are, your family.
Bollocks. That's complete bollocks because they changed the terms and conditions, and suddenly, there's
because of that barrier, because of that that home barrier, where it's like you're trying to be home but you aren't. You're not. Like when a plane breaks the sound barrier, it suddenly goes fucking quiet. The turbulence stops. The fucking radical amount of energy you have to keep putting in to go even a little bit faster, that starts to get back to linear.
Yeah.
Like that's what that barrier looks like, and you can't get through it without giving up a bunch of stuff.
That's another good analogy. So it's laminar flow, isn't it? If you rather than control, because control's I'm not sure is the right word, but let's for sake of this argument I'm about to make, call it influence. Influence being the inverse of being powerless, right? It's the distribution of influence.
Or agency.
Freedom.
Yes.
Freedom. Yeah. It's the distribution of freedom. And what that allows is for alignment of incentives to actually have, it's almost like you're magnetizing an iron rod. All the force lines are now pointing in the same direction instead of pointing in random directions. So, for example, for a dedicated tin, you've got a whole bunch of influences there. You've got the guys who sold the tin, the guys who wrote the OS. They're all looking out for themselves. The guys who are actually writing the software to run on that OS, the guys who are doing the product for that, the workers who are building, the company, and then you've got the board, and then you've got the investors. All these influences are pointing in random directions, in the direction that is rational for them. But the result is you don't actually make much movement in one direction. If you effectively magnetize it, so all the force lines, all the influence is dispersed and left to find its own direction, then you're going to get a subset of that are all pointing in the same direction. I'm not sure. I've got an idea in my head to explain that better, but there's something about that dispersal of agency in a large group.
How do we show that barrier? Because we're basically saying that once you can get through that barrier, the sky's the fucking limit.
That's right.
Because companies are cheap, software is reliable. All you had to give up was everything. But, right?
Well, you had to start actually acting like a team or a community, as opposed to just spouting bollocks about it.
Yeah, and where did all the money come from to pay this extra benefit to all the participants? Well, you removed the top 5% just got wiped out. Yeah. They owned 95% of the revenue stream, and that's where the redispersal comes from.
Yeah, and it's in that granulation. The smaller the granules, the more equitable it can be. If you have one big lump, it's never going to be equitable.
No, and so there's a second point that fits in here somewhere, but I don't know where. Mm-hmm. And it's the fact that if you want to change your work patterns to be outcome-based, like how our R10 is, mm-hmm. R10 is basically an outcome-based work management system.
Yeah.
Current work happens in terms of hours. If you were to move to outcome-based work, then you would have no problem doing remote work because you don't need to keep track of your employees. You really don't care. You're like, you either gave me my output or you didn't. Right. And what's more, the pool's open, so anybody who thinks I'm offering a good deal can come in and fill it. Right?
Yeah.
Now, why would you want to not move to outcome-based work? Well, outcome-based work serves as a reminder to the worker that they have produced something of value. that is going to be resold, and they're going to want some of that.
Yeah.
Now, when you're only working for hours and you're like, I want some of that, it's like, sure, you can have some time off, right? Like, if you have workers thinking in terms of hours, you can trick them that they're actually producing assets with that time, because they're all focused on time and my holidays and my sick leave and my hourly rate and my salary rate.
Yeah.
But actually, you're trying to get them to make assets, which you then sell, and then you take a bigger cut than them because they sold you hours and you kept your end of the bargain. Haha. But really, the company made its money from assets, or you know. And so moving to outcome-based work without allowing people to have a share of that outcome is not probably a move that a traditional company can make, because you end up losing your control structure in doing so.
Yes, exactly. And again, the incentives of buying people's time, the person you're buying that time from rationally should be minimizing their work in order to continue to get paid for that time, which is why people are on Facebook during work.
Right. And now there's also this, in these columns that we've got, you could also say there's a trend from left to right going from time to event or thing. Like servers, rented by the hour, whereas serverless functions are kind of like by the invocation.
Yes, but even that, there's another step there, which is what they're invoking. So you're right on the dedicated tin. You're just buying. You're not even buying by the hour there on virtualization or cloud. You are buying by the hour, but even on serverless, it's not self-licking lolly. There's some value being generated by that thing, and that value is you can't capture that unless you link that into work and funding. That makes sense.
Where do we capture the reuse of work in this diagram, or does it just simply not?
No, we don't.
Fit,
and I was struggling with that. I decided to duck that question for now. But there may well be another column to the right, because that we're just talking about the creation here. But what we're not talking about is the where the real innovation comes from is mixing and matching, isn't it? You've done this over here, that guy's done this over there. All I'm going to do is put them together and use them in a completely new way. Real low overhead, very high value. So it's like the how much effort to value produced. But this is
you
not
could use it by another row of knowledge sharing. Right, like if you're on the leftmost, there's like zero knowledge sharing outside the walls of your company. In the cloud, you're actually sharing quite a bit of knowledge because you're using servers that have been used by other people. You are using tooling that's been reused by other people. You're actually reusing components.
That works because when you, for example, go from a single raise, your capacity of pulling in people's experience in order to make a good judgment call is limited to just the investors. On the public listing, then you've got the wisdom of the market. On crowdfunding, you could argue that actually that's more granulated and it's more kind of emotive. But what you're doing is you're actually pulling in a larger number of people to give their judgment call, and you're getting a higher impact because of the wisdom of the crowds. Ultimately, what you really want is the invisible hand. Back to my hero, Adam Smith. The invisible hand is simply the emergent behavior of a large number of people making very simple choices about what's in the best interest for them. The larger the number, the larger the market, and the more efficient the market, the better outcomes that you get. I think you've got something there. It would be a horizontal fourth line.
that was talking about sharing or knowledge connection.
Yeah, it's how
Right, where it's
big's your
like
knowledge pool?
crowdfunding has a much bigger knowledge connection score.
Right. Yeah. And okay, so Smith's perfect market involves absolute transparency. Everyone knows exactly what the situation is. Involves a large enough pool where you're getting the interaction of the various judgment calls. So everyone's got the same amount of knowledge. Everyone's making their own judgment. If you get a large enough number of people making their judgment call and everyone's got the same information, you've got a perfect market.
Right, which never happens in the current system.
Yeah. But to the left of this, it's absolute perverse because you've only got one or two guys that sit down there with, the funders have got all the cash and saying, well, I've got cash and so I must have, I'm going to make the absolute best judgment call. No, towards the left, your judgment calls on the funders level are really shit. Really shit. Slightly better the more people you get involved. But if you get a perfect market, then you get the absolute best outcome and everyone gets richer. So there's a reason why, for example, venture capitalists only count on 1 out of 10, which is a horrific stat. I have no idea whether it's true. I was told this many years ago. But they kind of at the back of their head saying, we're going to back 10 companies and we expect 1 to actually succeed. That's a shit ratio. Absolute shit ratio. That means that you're absolutely fucking wrong 90% of the time.
It's like of those 9 that failed, how did you reuse the assets that they made?
Yeah.
Was there a focus to build reusable assets anyway, or was it really just a rip shit and bust effort to only build just what you needed?
Yeah. So, fucking hell, 1 in 10. You get a better return if you went on a roulette wheel and bet on red all the time. It's like, seriously, is this your method? I know the stats don't work out, but you know the idea. It doesn't
work out the same. It's because when you hit it, when that 1 comes in, it gives you back 1,000 times.
And that's what they're betting on. But that again is the accumulation, the clumpiness of the capital at that point allows them to make bad decisions. So the very fact that there's only a small number of people involved in the capital raise allows them, and the multiples, if it works, are such that allows them to be really shit at actually making a judgment call. So that means, in effect, it's a machine that's running at 10% efficiency. And the only reason you can get away with that is because that 10% is actually higher than what you put in.
Right.
But that is a lot of wasted effort. So a lot of people in the 9 other companies have just spent 3 years.
How do we add this to our diagram?
I think I've got an idea, but I'm going to need to think about this. But there's something about it's the combination of those 2 things. It's the size of the market, the number of people thinking about this, the transparency of the information, and the granularity of the reward. There's something about that.
I definitely think that there's something really good in this diagram connecting the fungibility and the granularity of compute with fungibility and granularity of working, fungibility and granularity of funding. Yeah. I think that is a remarkable contrast to paint of where all 3 things are hitting, and we're trying to offer a convergence.